Ms. Reclue?
Present.
Ms. Seebacher?
Here.
Mr. Stone?
Present.
Mr. Washington?
Here.
And Mr. West?
Here.
8 council members present, 0 absent.
Very good. Pastor Williamson is here to do our invocation.
Happy New Year, everybody. Let's pray together. Heavenly Father, it's a blessing to have a new beginning. You were sure faithful to us in 2022, and we expect your grace and kindness and leadership to continue to lead us into this new year with new opportunities as well as new challenges. We want to pray tonight for our neighbors in California. The floods there are relentless, and the recovery is still from the Oklahoma Panhandle up through New England from the storms of 2 weeks past. So we remember those that are our fellow countrymen for the cleanups they're going to have to go through and the adjustment to life and loss. So we pray your blessings on these and all others whose lives are under stress because of natural occurrences. We pray, Lord, for the perpetual violence across our nation. And we lift up in unison, Lord, those who patrol our streets and allow us, Lord, to rest in peace at night. We're really blessed in this community and, in fact, in this state in many ways for the tranquility, the style of life that we're blessed with and enjoy. But we do not take it for granted. And we pray for those, Lord, who keep us safe and protected by day and by night. I'm always grateful, Lord, for those who lead this city. In this very challenging time, it takes a lot of courage to serve in a government work at any level. And I really respect those that are willing to serve in this community and put their lives on the line, Lord, to help us be better and stronger working together. I pray tonight, Lord, for those in office, our mayor, council persons, our administrators, department heads, and all of those that are on the grounds every day to keep us moving forward as a people. We just praise you, Lord, for the community that we live in and for the strength of working together that binds us and very often helps us to heal together. Bless this session tonight and all that comes before this council in discussion or decision. May it first be pleasing to you. We pray this together through Christ our Lord. Amen. Face the flag. Attention, salute, and pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Privilege, sir.
Okay, first up tonight, we have a public hearing for the purpose of considering the rezoning of an unapproved tract of land located on the north side of Tennyson Road, just south of Willow Creek subdivision, Willow Creek South, in Fulton, Missouri, from its current zoning of A1 agricultural to C2 commercial. And at this time, I will issue 3 calls for anyone wishing to speak in opposition. The hearing is now declared open. First call, is anyone present wishing to speak in opposition to this matter? And second call, and third call for anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this matter. Next up, we'll have 3 calls for anyone wishing to speak in favor. First call, anyone present wishing to speak in favor of this matter? Second call. And third call, anyone wishing to speak in favor? All righty, we'll wrap that up. This public hearing is now declared closed. Our next item tonight is comments from visitors, and anyone present wishing to address the council, please come to the podium, give us your name, address, and keep your comments to 5 minutes or less, please. And seeing no one come forward, we'll move on to our approval of the consent agenda. Council members may choose to remove an item for discussion prior to approving the agenda. Tonight we have city council meeting minutes of November 22nd, 2022, the council meeting minutes at November 29th, 2022, and the city council meeting minutes of December 13th, 2022.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I have a motion and a second. We all have a copy of those minutes and have had an opportunity to read them. Any questions or comments on that? All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
And opposed, no. All right, very good.
Yes.
Tonight, we do not have unfinished business. For new business, we have a representative here from Lewis Bade. He's here to request permission to deviate from a two-way parking requirement in Willow Creek subdivision. The request is to put in a 28-foot wide two-way street to one-sided parking. And the city code, section 102.56, states two-way, both-sided parking is required unless the city council approves a deviation from the design standards. And Kyle, if you would, or whoever's here to.
Yes, I've got a representative from Lewis and Beatty, Brandon Kurtz here to speak on the matter. And this is essentially the next phase of Willow Creek subdivision. As you guys know, Willow Creek, we had some narrow streets there to begin with, and we reduced parking on to one-sided parking through the main kind of drag along through there, and this is just another phase of that original sketch plat that's going on. So my recommendation is I don't see a problem with the 28-foot wide road, but limiting the parking to one side, that will still allow our emergency vehicles to have enough room to come in and out, or our plow trucks to go in and out. So, Brandon?
Kyle, can you remind us of what we had recommended before?
That's in the
What we
ordinance.
passed it at? Yeah.
Yeah, and what's in the ordinance is that the ideal street for Fulton is 36-foot wide. That allows 2 8-foot parking lanes on both sides, and then 2 driving lanes. So a 28-foot wide.
Page 21 of our packet. You're welcome.
Yep. A 28-foot wide would allow 1 parking on one side and 2 traffic lanes.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, and staff. My name is Brandon with Lewis and Beatty. Just like Kyle had said, we're requesting to go to a 28-foot street to keep it consistent with the previous development. This is the next phase of it, and we've changed the configuration around a little bit. Back when we first started this, we really weren't aware of the park situation over there in Tennyson and all that. So we've changed things around a little bit. And that's what we're here to request, is just to keep things consistent, one-sided parking, 28-foot wide streets. And I'm here to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. The question I had was, have you talked with the tenants that are out there, and now that they're used to parking on both sides, that there's going to be a change in that situation? You find any information from them, get any information from them? And say, hey, you're only going to be able to park on one side. Then it becomes an enforcement situation where the officers got to go. If somebody's parking on the wrong side of the street, it's going to have to start giving tickets. And
Sure.
now there's going to be a lot of unhappy people.
This is for a new development. This is all raw, undeveloped farm ground right now. So there are no current residents that this is going to affect. This is brand spanking new. It's probably a bean stop field right now. So this is for a proposed development. This isn't any sort of a change to the previous development. This is just for the future phases that we're currently working on right now.
Okay, and thank you. That leads me to my next question. Kyle, have some of the residents in that area, now that we are on the main drag, we have said that I've seen cars parked on both sides as I, on that, in that subdivision.
Yes, originally there was, they were allowed to park on both sides. We did not have it restricted to one-sided parking. When we restricted it to one-sided parking, I went through and knocked on each door myself and our traffic department and talked to the folks and they understood fully. At that time, we had an issue on one of the streets that had the issue that there was the fire department had to get in there. There was people parked on both sides, and it created a problem. The streets that Brandon's talking about with this new phase, these are the streets in here are not really meant to be through streets. It's more local, just local to people who are going to live in there. You know, it's not going to be more of an access street.
Thank you.
If you remember, the reason we went to this, though, was because we had to change the parking to one-sided streets for this. And I still, even if you say we're going to have parking on one side, people are going to park on both sides unless our police are up there all the time, and they don't have the time for that. So I'm not in support of this change, so I'll just say it on the record right now. But we need to have the streets that are wide enough so people can park on both sides of the street, and we still get our emergency vehicles in there, my opinion.
I'll second that. Just from I visit that subdivision frequently because it's right over my ward and I run through there and whatnot. The way it's currently set up, too, people will park multiple cars in the driveway, which block the sidewalks, which now makes the sidewalks unusable for foot traffic. And I mean, if you're trying to build a subdivision for families or whatever, they're not going to be able to use those sidewalks, which means now they're walking in the road. If it's not a wider road, which we've already passed and discussed, then we run into even more safety issues. So I'd personally like to see us stick with what we've set up now. Brandon, Jeff Stone,
Yes.
have you done an impact study on your design? That if this were not allowed, what would that, how much reduction in property, how much reduction in rooftops, that sort of thing? Have you looked at that? Can you give us that information?
We have looked at it a little bit. So the wider pavement obviously is, more money. You're talking from a 28 to a 36, 25% more concrete, roughly, give or take. And that goes to a 60-foot right-of-way, is that correct? So there will be a little bit. I mean, there's some of it where they are, working on, some the way the depth of the property falls out, it could have some effect on density and reconfiguring. So that is a possibility. I haven't done a 60-foot wide right-of-way layout to see how that, I don't have that exact number. It probably would have some effect on the amount of lots and homes, and then, you obviously have just the raw bottom dollar construction cost. So you'll be spending more on your infrastructure, and then you'll be recouping less in overall lots, which affects the affordability of the property and the development, so.
Since we, Mary, since we've more or less made a mistake or whatever on the first part of this Willow, I also agree with Mike. I think we should do a safe way of doing it. I know it's going to mess up a little bit of your construction and so on, the way that it was planned, but the safety, I'm concerned about the future owners and the safety of the narrower streets. I live on a street that we can park on both sides. I'm fortunate to have done that. But for the safety reason, really don't like the idea of keeping the 28 streets.
And I read, I believe in the P and Z minutes that the discussion, was this plat approved already once?
It was part of the original sketch plat. And so we did an amended sketch plat because, like I said, we changed the configuration around a little bit. So on the original sketch plat from back in, was that 2018? Looks like it was back in 2018, if I can read my little letters, numbers. So yeah, this was all part of the original sketch plat. But like I said, we did change that around, configuration around a little bit to reserve some areas for, they weren't really sure, because the original, there was some of the townhomes and there was some of the single families, and they weren't really sure which way this was gonna go, which way was gonna be the better way to go for what people wanted. And so they're kind of looking at about a 50-50 blend. So we had to reshape some lots to make that work and then reserve some possible future commercial areas along Tennyson Road there.
So a version of it was approved, just not this version, sort of?
Yes, yeah, this area was part of that original sketch plat back in 2018, but it's just been modified a little bit.
Did you guys buy that land in 2018? Because I know it was for sale, since I've been on the council, just a couple of years ago.
I'm not sure, because I'm not the developer, I'm not the owner. I'm not sure if he had completely purchased it or if it was just like under contract or first right of refusal. I'm not sure what the exact arrangement of that was, but it was always, we submitted it as part of the sketch plat, so it was always out there that it was potentially a future phase or future phases of this development. So it's not an afterthought, it's just a expansion of what we started.
I believe that. I believe if I was going to put in a subdivision, I would at least check with the city and see what's the requirement for my roads before I come to the city and say, hey, my road's going to be a little bit smaller because I want to, that kind of thing, so.
As Councilman Washington, at that time that the sketch original plat was submitted in the original phases, they did come to the city and did work not only with the engineering staff, but our administrator at the time. And unfortunately, that width of street was approved at that time. And so they did do what you're asking. Presently, there are two stub streets that feed into this next phase that are at that narrower width. So if we were to widen these out, you would have a 36-foot wide road being then neck down to a 26-foot wide road. And so that's why, given when this originally was requested and what they originally worked through with us, that's why I feel, given the type of street that it is and how it fits with the other phases, whether we like it or not, at this time, I personally feel that to match the rest of the subdivision and to get the best that we can out of it is the limit. To me, my recommendation would be the 28-foot wide road, limit the parking on one side. I do prefer the 36, but.
Due to the reason that,
Correct.
okay.
My concern too with shrinking these roads down is, and I live in a subdivision where it's not a through street. And we have people that walk on the roads all the time, Alan, just like you were stating. And if there's somebody parked there and we're walking around the car, it's a hazard. I mean, it's scary, especially if we have kids and if we're promoting this as a family neighborhood. You know, we want people to be safe, and we want them to feel safe, and we want them to buy the homes, and we want them to rent the homes. So that's my concern too with shrinking those roads down.
Sort of a visual person, I think if I could see the whole subdivision in an aerial view of it and see what portion of this it affects and where there might be a stopping point to letting this deviation keep going on, because we obviously don't want it to keep going on forever. I mean, we made this change for a reason. I mean, I wouldn't mind one more street or, whatever little section to make it fit this final phase of this neighborhood and be done with this. But I think I would feel better about seeing the whole picture a little bit more before I would, want to make that final decision. I don't know.
Mr. Mayor, I move we table this item to our next scheduled council meeting. Allow time for the developer to bring back some more of those details and possible sketches.
Yeah, with that too, we can maybe get a risk assessment of the impact financially, impact on the properties. And also to the point, I think is another good discussion item is what exactly was what was approved in the past? Was it this whole new section? Was it not? Because there's a good business partnership piece there too, that if, to your point, Kyle, if all this had been pre-approved, then, that's something that the council needs to think about is, are we going back on something we've approved already? Or to everyone else's comments, which I agree with as well, is the ultimate safety aspect, and that's the reason we really implemented this in the first place, as the overriding, authority and reason for the wider road. So I think there's definitely some additional information we could use to make sure we all make the best informed decision there.
And we do have a
Second.
motion on the floor. Second? Okay, thank you. So, yeah, I think, is it going to hinder your progress in a big way to hold this off for a couple weeks where we can get a little bit more information from you?
No, sir, we can, we can put some stuff together and look at the potential impacts like you guys had requested and get some old maps and some new maps together and give you guys some pretty pictures to look at.
Well,
Like-
with that, I think that'd be great.
I was going to say, like Kyle said, this is not going to be a through street. It's going to be, the traffic's not going to go all the way through and things. So being reduced in on one side, I guess it's not a bad thing. But I'm just thinking about the enforcement on that if somebody decides to ignore it.
Well, again, we appreciate your time, and is there any more discussion on this? We do have a motion on the floor. I'll call for the question. All those in favor say yes,
Yes.
and opposed, no. So we'll look at this again, get that together for us if you would.
Will do.
and, appreciate your time.
Thank you.
We do.
Thank you.
We do want progress. We do want homes built. That's what we want. So we do appreciate that. All right, next up, council concerns. Council members may discuss matters or concerns not on the agenda. Council liaisons to city boards and commissions will also provide a brief review of the most recent meeting. And we'll start with Councilman West.
I figure out how to operate this, okay. All right, so the Planning and Zoning Commission met on December the 28th to discuss the one we heard the public hearing on tonight, the rezoning of the unapproved tract of land, and that was recommended by the Planning and Zoning Commission. I was not present. Dennis, is that correct? They approved it? Yeah. So that's why it's to the council tonight. I was out of town, so I wasn't able to attend, and I have no concerns at this time, other than maybe how to operate microphones.
That may be a concern for a while for all of us. We're doing good, though. Thank you. Councilwoman Seebacher.
Good evening. I touched mine right when I started.
Very
Y'all
good.
just take note. No concerns for me this evening, and Park Board has not met, but we are meeting on Thursday at 5:30. Correct, Mr. Caswell? Okay. That's all I have.
Okay, very good. Are we able to publish that on our Parks and Rec social media page. I know a lot of people always ask me, when's the park board meeting? When's the park board meeting? I don't know, you don't want 100 people there, but it'd be nice to get that information out. Is it on the city website?
I believe so. I think it's,
Okay,
yeah.
great, thank you. Next up, Councilwoman Reclus.
Yes, we haven't had we haven't had a meeting with the Traffic Commission for a couple of months. So we'll be looking into future things, looking into spring before we know it. Won't be long, we'll be able to hopefully see the new bridge put on Second Street and get that all done in a few months yet. That'll be completed. And of course, our sidewalk, to finish our sidewalks on Bluff or Main Street and things like that. Otherwise, taking care of the roads through the winter and hopefully have a nice spring and get some of these roads asphalt or whatever, and get some of the roads taken care of in the spring when the weather changes. Thank you.
Yep, very good, thank you. Councilman Stone?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. The Historic Preservation Commission actually meets next week, so I'll have an update at our next scheduled meeting for that commission. And then I have two concerns that are related to some of the stuff that we've already talked about this evening. One is, I'll take advantage of the representative being here. I get many questions about streetlights in that subdivision. And I know I've spoken with Mr. Dunlap before from utilities, because it's kind of a handshake, I guess, between the developer and city utilities to get streetlights in there. Mr. Dunlap told me individually that it was about ordering of materials, delivery of that sort of thing. So I'm not sure if there's an update available, Mr. Dunlap, or not.
Utilities, Darrell Dunlap. We do have some lights in, and they're being staked now for that Willow Creek to get some set in there. So you should be seeing some changes there.
So for the, I guess, for the existing streets and homes that are there?
Correct.
What type of process might it be to light up what is currently there?
What's
Yeah.
currently there, the duplexes and single homes, some of the lights was in there already, and I think we've ordered enough to pretty much fix what's been built and get
Okay.
them lit.
So that, a month, 2 months,
No, we're talking weeks.
weeks? Wonderful. Thank
Okay.
you very much. I'll pass that on. And then similar to the discussion we had in that subdivision, as I was doing my, collecting my petition signatures in my ward, I got many questions about parking. Parking on one side of the street versus two sides of the street, where it's marked as no parking completely on some streets. The main street that I got asked about, because it's where I live, is Ravine. There's areas of Ravine where it's not supposed to be parking on either side of the street, but there is. It's considered a snow route, it's a thoroughfare, and even though it's wide enough by standards, it's kind of one of our more narrow streets, especially where it does some bending and curving. And I mentioned this earlier to the chief, that I was going to bring this up. And then we also have folks that, when they do park on the side of the street or both sides of the street when it's allowed, they're parked the wrong direction, which can cause some safety issues of people pulling directly out into traffic. And so I asked the chief just to update, or to remind us the rules and how we pass that information along.
Bill Adwick, Police Chief, and thank you for the opportunity to address this. If anyone has concerns, citizens, about parking on a street, please contact us. Usually the left side to curb in like residential areas where there's not a lot of traffic flow, we've generally worked on that on a complaint-driven basis. But on Ravine Street, that is a heavily traveled roadway. So if somebody is parking where it's not allowed by sign, that's one thing. Left side to curb, we try to get out and find the owner of the vehicle or whoever parked the vehicle there and explain to them why it's not a good idea to park there and ask them to move that right away. Basically, as for lack of a better term, just to educate them that it is unlawful, because a lot of people don't realize that it is, and it can be a safety issue. So if anyone does have concerns about that or sees that, I encourage them to contact us, and we will respond immediately and take care of it.
Thank you, Chief. And that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Yeah, it takes all of us working together, and the citizens can help by being proactive and making that phone call, and it'll be dealt with. Very good. Next up, Councilman Luther.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. As of last meeting, there's been no Airport Advisory Board meeting and no new updates there that aren't already in our packet. As far as council concerns, probably a lot of us have seen the new KFC. It's a very popular place. The drive-through line has been extremely long and out into Business 54. Really not sure what we can even do with that other than just make sure people slow down in that area. The left-hand turning lane down that hill in the long-term future may help some of that, but probably not that particular issue. And then might be a question maybe for the park board has the last meeting minutes been published to the park board? Do we publish those meeting minutes? Okay. And I think that's all the questions I had. Thank you.
Appreciate that. All right, next up, Councilman Combs.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, the Human Rights Commission has not met since our last meeting. We meet here at the end of the month, and I have no concerns tonight.
Very good. And Councilman Washington.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's just, I was watching the website, the rolling information about job openings, and I was just wondering if there was an opportunity that they can put together a hard copy so I can get a copy of it and deliver that. Not everybody has a computer or are able to get to, on the website and things like that. So I was just wondering if I can get a hard copy so we can, all the job openings, so I can give to people in our community and let them know that we have openings here at the city of Fulton.
Yeah, people still do look at bulletin boards, so. Yep.
If you would like to let us know when you want to come by and pick up a copy, we'll have it for you.
I think it's in the works already. She has. Thank you. I was wondering if we got it taken care of, sister.
That was fast.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
All righty. Thank you. And Councilwoman Nelson, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No utility board meeting. I do believe, though, Daryl, correct me if I'm wrong, we were able to buy some gas at a decent price. Could you give us an update on that?
Darrell again with utilities. We did book some gas. Late last week, we caught a dip in the market, and we got it booked for $3.72. Our other price that we had locked in at an earlier contract was $4.56. So that gets, we basically locked in 40%, an additional 40%. So we're at basically 80% locked, except we did work with Heather, with IMGA, and we looked back the previous 5 years, and any month that would have overbooked us for a particular month, we backed it down to 100% of that month. So to try not to overbook us, but yes, the lock went through.
Thank you so much, Daryl. And I do not have any concerns tonight.
Very good. All right. I do have a need for a quick 5-minute break, so we'll recess and come right back.
Ooh.
Check, 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 check. See, it sounds. Check, check. Check, 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 check. Check one, check two. That sounds, it's not as loud.
Testing, testing. Testing, testing, testing. Testing, 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 testing.
Check, check. It doesn't even sound.
Testing, testing. Yeah. We bring you greetings. Testing, testing. Whatever it is, it's loud now. Maybe it's because I'm talking into it. Testing. Testing. Test. Test 1, 3. Test 1, 2, 3. Testing. Equal asset program services and employment is available to all people. Those applicants require accommodation to the applications and the interview process. Should notify human resources.
Test 1, 2, test 1, 2. Are we picking it up? I think we're good. Okay. So I'm just gonna keep talking and test 1, 2. Test, test. Okay.
Test, test. Test, 1, 2, 3. Mic's too loud. 1, 2, 3. Test.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Bill number 1662, an ordinance reclassifying under the zoning code an unimproved tract of land located on the north side of Tennyson Road, just south of Willow Creek subdivision, Willow Creek South, in Fulton, Missouri, and establishing an effective date. I make a motion to move Bill number 1662 for second reading at our next scheduled council meeting.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. The zoning change was talked about by our P and Z board and approved or recommended that we approve it. I don't believe there was any controversy over this. There was one question about the whether the commercial designation was appropriate for that neighborhood, but it seems like it is.
And, Mr. Mayor, I do have a couple of questions about
Yes.
the zoning designation.
Dennis Houchins, Planning Director. There was a concern about going to the C2 commercial, but I spoke with a developer today, and the reason they went to it, everything adjacent to that property is all C2 commercial, and they're leaving 2 spots on each end of, potentially for storage units, potentially.
Dennis, remind me, does C2 allow for single-family dwellings as well?
Yes.
And I know we don't approve zoning based upon what we think is going to go in there, but I know one of the items that was in the notes was about a fourplex, that it would allow for duplex or fourplexes.
Yes.
Do you know, is there,
As far as I know, it's duplexes and single family.
okay.
It's a
thank
mixture
you.
of what's there existing.
Thank you. The community needs some fourplexes and eightplexes and some larger multifamily dwellings, and so I was hopeful based on that
Yeah,
language.
as far as I know, it's just duplexes and single family.
Thank you. That was the only question I had, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, it's pretty nice to see some action, some building being done. Any increase in traffic on that end of town helps our businesses in that, down there, so it's nice to see that. Yes, Al?
I'd like to, before we do move forward with this, I'd like to see us look at our city plan, maybe before we go making a whole lot of changes. I know like right now, the last city plan that I've seen, we were hopeful to have Tennyson Road put through there, and there wasn't a whole lot of talk of development or anything like that beyond that. And I know with the park that's planned to go through there, and I know we need housing, and I know we want to put housing in wherever we can put housing, but maybe plan through Tennyson, like what we hope to see along there, whether it be commercial, whether it be housing, because that will definitely change that whole south end of town. And we own, or not own, the city encompasses beyond Tennyson even, and there's a lot of agricultural land there. And so if we start going that way, do we want to have already thought through what we want that end of town to look like beyond just what fits our immediate need? I know that's some other things too, like when we do other aspects, but just knowing that the park is planned to be there, and we've planned to put, last I heard, ball fields out there, and have limited other things going in around that. Maybe it's worth looking at the plan of that area before we just change what was agricultural to commercial. And maybe it is, hey, we can change it from agricultural to residential and say it is residential. But for me, I'd hate to move it straight to commercial if we don't really want commercial along there, that sort of thing.
We had, we own a lot of land south of that, and that's what the kind of the long-term plan is to, you know, to build those things, but whether that happens or not, we don't know. The thought was to do that, and then when we started looking at it, the amount of dirt we were gonna have to move to even put a parking lot in was, you know, way out of our budget, so, you know, stuff like that changes. But I don't know, to limit and to stop progress of this nature, I don't know if that's what, you know, I don't know.
I know Clay at one time, and when he was looking at a lot of the excavation of a lot of the stuff, and I think he's been in contact with, if you can refresh my memory, maybe at Lentech, some of the training, some of the people there that maybe come and utilize their services when we were looking at probably doing something with the ball field. That was just probably a discussion that he was having with me, but I'm not sure if he looked into that any further or not, so.
Clay Caswell, Parks and Rec Director. Bob, it's been a long time since we talked to them before that was probably before the rec center was built. Yeah, we had talked to them about coming over and doing some of that dirt work. And I know we have plans that show roads going through there and things like that, but again, we don't know where that is, how far down the road that is.
Knowing that was part of the discussion, that maybe in the future, when we start looking at that we may reconsider talking to them about doing something like that.
Definitely, yeah.
And I don't know that we could do a comprehensive study, but we could probably at least do some in-house research a little bit and get, you know, get a better idea of what the impact might be long-term of this change.
I say, for me, it's less about what it is, wanting to go in there or plan to go in there, but like letting us actually say, hey, let's take a minute and plan what we want that in town to look like. Because we've got a lot of parts of town where we haven't done that, and it ends up kind of a mess because we don't have a plan. But if we say, hey, we want this to be residential, then we can say, hey, let's make this residential. Or if we say this wants to be commercial, then we can say, hey, let's make this commercial. But maybe it's, hey, let's pause for a minute and decide what we want it to be like. Or like you said, do some sort of study or do some sort of planning so we know what we want it to be.
Can I make a motion that we table this for now?
Absolutely.
Okay, either that or I would like to withdraw my second. I agree with Councilman Combs.
Yeah, I believe you could table. What do you think would be the best?
I think at this point, because it is an ordinance, it requires 3 separate readings. A table makes more sense probably than withdrawing, because we certainly don't want to just kill something in an effort to try to do some research. So motion and table, I think, would be most appropriate.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to table this for further research, and I definitely think that's a wise move. Any other discussion?
Mr. Mayor, can someone remind us when the next Planning and Zoning Commission meeting is?
There's one, what?
February 1st? Thank you. So it would be after the next council meeting.
Yes.
But it doesn't need to go back to planning and zoning.
In case we wanted something to go back to the planning and zoning.
Oh, okay,
To
yeah.
get information from them, have them do some of this research for us. I mean, that's what they're here for.
Yeah.
Is to provide us with that information and some of that advice. So I was just trying to figure out when the timing was.
Sure, well, it's
But
only,
this will have to come off the table before that meeting.
right.
Thank you.
I understand where you're coming from, Councilman Combs, but unfortunately, we're dependent upon a lot of private investors to do a lot of this stuff. I agree with you. You go down Business 54, you have gas stations, and you have houses, and you have little quick restaurants, fast food places. So it's kind of a hodgepodge, and that's unfortunately what we've inherited. I'm not sure how you get away from that at this point in time. But I like your idea about wanting to say, okay, we want this area to be residential and, you know. But I'd be supportive of whatever you guys, you know, all want to do, but it's just a long-term thing. We're kind of dependent upon private investors for a lot of this stuff, you know. So I would kind of like to see how this dovetails with Tennyson Park area and the fire department and all that, you know, so I'm not sure how close those properties are, you know, without looking at a larger map. So, thank you.
So just for clarification, we've motioned second, then motioned to table and second. Councilman Stone, you mentioned that if we wanted this to go back to planning and zoning, we're going to remove it from the table at the next meeting, and then would we have to kill the ordinance at that point to send it back? And if so, do we just want to do that now?
Or allow it to go to second reading and ask
Okay.
for more information.
But as
back
an ordinance,
before.
it could come back, correct? What,
Well, they would
okay.
have to bring it, it would have to be brought back as a first reading ordinance again
Okay,
in the future.
so we wouldn't really lose any ground if we killed it tonight.
I would not recommend procedurally killing it necessarily. We certainly would have the opportunity to have planning and zoning take a look. There's also work that could be done internally, if that's how Renee chooses to direct this, to get some of these things moving forward, some of these answers and questions and all those kinds of things. That being said, if you were to move forward with tabling it tonight, it would go on the table, it would go on the next agenda, where it would either have to come off for discussion and then be placed back on, should you need more time. The thing I would caution with, and we've run into this in the past with rezonings, is legal proceedings that are required. So you have to go through all of these zoning hearings. There's another hearing like what we did tonight. And I would caution the council to not make a rash decision and kill something where we then have to go through that entire process again, which would delay it another 45 to 60 days. So my personal recommendation, there is time for us to do some work and investigation internally. There's also time, should you choose to take it off the table and put it right back on, to allow for the Planning and Zoning Commission to meet again.
Perfect, thank you.
And there is another option. We have 3 readings. We could move it forward tonight. We could vote not to table, move it forward tonight, and then next meeting, take similar action, put it on the table, give direction, or get more information and be ready to be moved on. I mean, that's another option too.
Yeah, I think it's a wash. The main thing is that we're gonna punt the ball, keep this going a little bit, and see what we can dig up without digging up.
Then,
Sorry, everybody. No, I wasn't on. Loud.
yeah, now I'm trying to remember what it was.
That's classic.
It was really important, too. So obviously, as a council, we want to make sure, we make the best and right decision we can for the city and the constituents, but progress, timeline, are we looking at a specific timeline for the developers? I mean, is this stop putting machines, will this hold up putting machines on the ground? What timeline are you looking for from the city in support of your projects, for clarification?
Once again, Brandon with Lewis and Beatty. Either way, I mean, like you guys have said, you've got to do 3 readings of it. It's not like you say yes tonight and we're turning dirt tomorrow. There's still plenty of stuff in between there. The 45 to 60 days, if it was completely killed and then has to be reapplied and restarted and all the public hearings and notifications and all that jazz, would potentially slow some things down, because they're really looking and hoping once the weather turns and once the weather gets nice. I mean, if you can get it, if everything gets approved and you can get any work done right now, it's all bonus work. It's all just gravy, So they're really hoping to have the ball rolling, once the weather starts to turn nice. So, a week or 2 isn't the end of the world if that's what you guys need. 45 to 60 days is gonna be a pretty good punch in the gut. So, and that's just my opinion.
So if we table this tonight, could we send it to planning and zoning and ask them to do a little research for us? And then they get back to us in the 2 week, do you think it's 2 weeks is too short of a time frame to ask them to do some sort of research for us?
It would have to be a special meeting of that commission, so,
Mr. Mayor,
and we do that rarely.
planning and zoning kind of meets on demand, so it's probably wouldn't be a huge deal, but what are you, I'm the liaison, what exactly are you looking for the planning and zoning commission to do? It's probably going to fall to Dennis and Kyle to do whatever we're looking for anyway.
That's what I was thinking. I mean, digging up some of those old presentations of what the park could look like and the ball fields could look like and how that
Yeah.
ties into our fire station and to commons.
I think if we took it back to the planning and zoning, they're probably just going to discuss it and make a recommendation to you.
The other thing I would caution really quickly is we're talking about a rezoning for this one specific property, which is not in any way, shape, or form related to what a park or ball fields might look like. And we cannot make a zoning decision based on that information. So please be mindful that when you're making these decisions, it has to be based on, is this an appropriate zoning for this parcel of land? Now, Councilman Combs, what you're saying about, does it fit in with the strategic plan? That is different from what I'm saying right now. We have copies, and Dennis has copies of the strategic plan as well. So again, I feel a lot of this information could be found internally, and then reviewed again. And should you guys want to send something back to planning and zoning, there is an opportunity for that. But a lot of this could be handled internally, I feel.
And I think the reason it went with C2 is because all the property north of Tennyson Road, all the way up to 54 is C2. And so to make it all, fit, the only residential is our property to the east, where the fire department is. So to make it all fit, they went with the C2 zoning. And like I said, with the map that they had, the design, a layout, there are 2 sections that potentially could be developed other than residential.
All right. Any other questions or concerns? So we have a motion on the floor to table this till our next meeting. I'll call for that question. All those in favor say yes.
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 Opposed, no. We have 1 no, is that right? All righty.
I'm gonna have him look, maybe we just don't do that, and have him take a look.
So we'll move on. Next up, Councilwoman Reclus, if you would present Bill number 1663.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Bill number 1663, an ordinance authorizing the mayor, on behalf of the city of Fulton, Missouri, to execute all necessary documents in relation to the Missouri Department of Transportation application for federal, state assistance for airport ARPA funds and establish an effective date. I make a motion to place Bill number 1663 for second reading at next scheduled meeting.
Second.
Very good. We have a motion and a second. And this will be for, it'll end up being to just pay for commodities, fuel and.
Correct. Kyle Brimmer, city engineer. This is ARPA COVID relief funds designated to the airport specifically. And it will, all we have to do is turn in items that we've expensed, like fuel is a real easy one that we can send in and get that money back. So we can, then once we have that money, we can use it to offset our expenses, obviously.
And you have no concerns about it?
No.
Very good. Any other concerns or questions? I'll call for the question. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
And opposed, no. Thank you. All right, next up, Councilman Combs, if you would present Bill 1664.
All right, bill number 1664, an ordinance authorizing the mayor on behalf of the city of Fulton, Missouri, to execute all necessary documents in relation to the Missouri Department of Transportation Traffic Engineering Assistance Program agreed for the TEAP 069 Traffic Study Grant and establishing an effective date. I make a motion to place bill number 1664 for second reading at the next regularly scheduled council meeting.
Second.
All right, and since you're there, Mr. Kyle, if you would.
Correct. We were awarded a small grant that requires a small match for a traffic engineering study. It will basically let an engineering firm do some research for us and help to essentially help us set standards for our different thoroughfares, what we've talked about tonight. That are, we have from a residential street, dead-end street, what that should look like versus a commercial through street and everything in between. So it'll look at the industry guidelines and provide, this is what we would recommend for the city of Fulton. And that would allow us, it'll kind of give us armor us with the information to better provide a plan, citywide plan for what our streets are and if we have new streets coming in.
Very good. And the city's match is 3,000. The total will end up being 12,000. So that's a great helping hand there. So we appreciate that. Any concerns on this?
Not a concern. I just want to say thank you because this is something we've asked for a long time ago when you were still on the council, Mr. Mayor. So we asked for this sort of traffic study to be done. So I'm glad to see it coming to fruition. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And $12,000 won't do everything. I mean, it won't
Right.
do a lot, but that's a good matching grant for us. So. All righty. Any other questions? All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
And opposed, no. All right. Next up, we have Bill number 1665. Mr. Luther, please.
Yes. Yes, Mr. Mayor. Bill number 1665, an ordinance authorizing the mayor on behalf of the city of Fulton, Missouri, to execute all necessary documents in relation to the Missouri Department of Transportation application for federal state assistance for project designed by Crawford, Murphy, and Tilley Incorporated regarding airport runway lighting project number 22-04 Alpha-1 and establishing an effective date. I make a motion to place bill number 1665 for second reading on the next regularly scheduled council meeting.
Second.
All righty. And this one's the big one.
Correct. Yes, again, Kyle Brimmer, city engineer. Our runway lighting on 1836 is just caused us a bunch of problems for a long time. So what this grant would help us do is to pay to rework that. Anything at an airport is very expensive, unfortunately. So we're glad to get another grant on top of funds that we already get from FAA to offset the cost. So we were awarded a discretionary grant. It's going to total probably about $645,000, something in that ballpark, on top of traditional funds that we get from FAA, traditional grant funding. So there will be 2 grants involved at least on this. So 645 plus another 465. So we're looking at, over $1 million, $1,100,000, something in that ballpark to help us fund that project. So our matching requirement would be 10%. So we're looking at in the order of about 100,000, 100 to 120,000 would be our matching amount. Now, this is a 2024 project, construction project, so but what we need now is the ability to design it, get the planning done. We will have to bid it next year, but everybody has been well communicated to that this is going to be a 2024 project that would allow us time to come up with our match.
And Kyle, the design costs and all of that, that comes out of that traditional grant money we already get, right?
Correct.
Because our outlay of money is not going to be until 2024.
Correct. And then because of COVID, we have our traditional funds. We still have 2021 funding that was fully funded that did not require a match, that totaled about $150,000. So that engineering, that design work is not going to require a match from us. So we will have to pay it and get reimbursed for it, but it'll be fully reimbursed.
And even a project like this runs about that 15% design cost.
A little more than that. I would push that to about 20%.
Okay. Thank you, Kyle.
In the meantime, till we get the project going in 2024, do you see us having any major issues with the existing lighting? I mean, there's obviously problems with it, but are we going to be able to?
We're able to nurse it along. Our street department, our traffic department specifically, Matt Easley does a good job for us, and he's checking that daily and babysitting it and making sure that when there's lights out, if there's a wiring issue, he sees it, and oftentimes he gets Daryl's folks involved at the electric department to help fix it. So
I know it's a big headache for him. That'd be a great thing. All righty, any other questions for Kyle? Any discussion on this? I'll call for the question. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
And opposed, no. All right, we'll move that along. Second readings, Councilwoman Seebacher, if you would present Bill 1661.
Yes, sir. Bill number 1661, an ordinance incorporating certain territory as requested by Callaway County Presiding Commissioner Gary Youngerman into the corporate limits of the city of Fulton, Missouri, and establishing an effective date. I make a motion to place Bill number 1661 for third reading at tonight's council meeting.
All righty, we have a motion and a second, and this is something we heard about at our last meeting. We did do that public notice, I believe, that lengthy one. And if there's any other discussion, this hasn't changed, so I'll call for the question. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
And opposed, no. And I'm sorry, Valerie, did you say you're going to do it at the third tonight?
Yes.
Okay, if you would, please.
Of course. Bill number 1661, an ordinance incorporating certain territory as requested by Callaway County Presiding Commissioner Gary Youngerman into the corporate limits of the city of Fulton, Missouri, and establishing an effective date. I make a motion to place Bill number 1661 for final passage at tonight's meeting.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Call for the question. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
And opposed, no. You've all heard the bill read 3 times. At this time, Madam Clerk, if you would take roll call for final vote.
Mr. Luther?
Yes.
Ms. Nelson?
Yes.
Ms. Reclue?
Yes.
Ms. Seebacher?
Yes.
Mr. Stone?
Yes.
Mr. Washington?
Yes.
Mr. West?
Yes.
And Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Thank you. 8 affirmative, none opposed.
All righty, announcements. Our next city council meeting will be held Tuesday, January 24th at 7 p.m. City Hall and Solid Waste Department will be closed on Monday, January 16th in observance of Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And on a final note of recognition, One of our longtime employees, Michael Ward, was presented with a proclamation for his retirement, so more retirements. But we appreciate his service, and I do not have a need for executive session. I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Thank you all.